Hello, I'm Dave Rowland, Communications Director for the San Diego City Council, and I would like to welcome you to another segment in a series of conversations with members of your City Council. For those of you who might not be completely up to speed with what the City Council is and does, well, the Council is the legislative body of the City of San Diego. It's made up of 9 members who represent geographic districts with equal numbers of residents. Collectively, the council makes the laws, which the mayor, as the city's chief executive, implements. Simple. Now, a rare thing is happening at the end of this year. 5 members of the city council will be leaving office, either because they have served the maximum allowable number of terms, which is 2, or they're running for a different office. And just FYI, you may not run for 2 offices on the same ballot. So this December, 5 new members will be sworn in, and the council will sport a very different overall makeup. My plan here is to talk to the departing members and those who will return, as well as the new members once they're sworn in. Today, I'm joined by City Council Member Jennifer Campbell, who represents District 2, which includes the communities of Pacific Beach, Ocean Beach, Mission Bay, Point Loma, Midway, Linda Vista, and Claremont. She serves as chair of the council's Environment Committee. Elected to council in 2018, she is one of the 4 members who will be returning in 2021. Councilmember Campbell, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
So you've been on council for 2 years, and one of them has been completely upended and dominated by a pandemic. Personally, how are you managing to cope with all this? How has it been for you and those close to you?
It's been fine. I mean, we've been very well behaved. We cover our face and wear our mask, cover our face when we leave our place. We've social distanced. We've been very careful, cleaning, washing our hands, being very, very hygienic. And so it's been good. In terms of our job on council, that's been doable, thank God, for technology, because we've been able to act virtually and have many meetings and council meetings and learn things online, etc., that we would do in person down at City Hall. So it's worked out quite well, thank heaven. We've been able to plow forward, even though we miss the collegiality of being together.
Right. And so I like to, things I really like to do is go out to dinner and go see movies. Are there things that you haven't been able to do that you just really miss, that you can't wait to start doing again?
Oh yes, well, all the things you mentioned, as well as, usually I'm able to go to see my constituents. I go to many community events, as well as town council meetings, planning group meetings, club meetings. And I love to do that and to be with my people and find out what their needs and their desires and their thoughts are. And I really miss that mix with the constituents. Prior to COVID, I went to about 160 different events in person around our district, and just in the first year of office. So I really miss that.
So let's back up a little. I like to drill right into what shapes a person's worldview. Can you talk about where your core values come from? What people or circumstances in your life are responsible for how you see the world?
Well, I think probably, first of all, I'm from Colorado. So I've been very close to the environment my entire life. My parents, of course, had tremendous effect on me and my siblings. And they were wonderful people. We were not wealthy at all. My dad was a machinist. My mom was a homemaker. Later in life, she became an executive assistant after we kids were grown and gone, and she went back to work. But we didn't have many means, but we were very close, very loved, and we never even knew that we didn't have means. So we didn't, we didn't feel left out. And we grew up in a neighborhood that was very blue collar, lower economic. It was completely mixed racially. We had people who had come out of Colorado's Japanese internment camps. This is, I was born right at the end of World War II. So I'm much older than my colleagues on the council. So I have a long history. And my parents were very active in public life. They taught us children to be good citizens. We had to be engaged in civic life. And at the dinner table every night, they would have us debate the events of the world, the events of our day. And we would have to learn how to discuss and take up various sides on various issues. They taught us to always try to walk in the other person's shoes. Now, being from Colorado, they called it moccasins. We always said, how does it feel to walk in the other guy's moccasins? And that's how we were taught to think. And so we did. And I feel like I grew up in a utopian situation because I was with so many people in my school, public school, and in my neighborhood who were of different backgrounds. And yet we were all alike. And we, when it comes down to it, people are people. So I learned that very early in life. And I learned very early in life to be a civil rights activist. So I was always very active in civil rights.
Yeah.
My mother was very politically active, and she taught us to do that as well.
San Diegans who followed your run for office got to know your background a little bit, but for those who might not know you too well, give us a little more about your history, your career, and what were you doing before you became a member of council?
I'm a physician. I've been a doctor for 40 years ago. I graduated from medical school, and prior to that, I was a mom. I went to medical school when I was 31. I started medical school. I already had 2 children I was raising. I had 2 nephews that I had also helped raise for a couple of years while their mom was ill. And so medical school didn't seem so difficult for me compared to those who hadn't been parents. Being a parent is a hard job. But it was hard. It was hard to be a doctor in those days if you were female. So just even doing the pre-med work and getting into medical school was a difficult battle in the first place. And I was one of 19 lucky women who were chosen for a class of 135 at the University of Pittsburgh Medical School back in 1976. And I was very fortunate. I feel very blessed, got a great education. And I think I looked forward to going to work every day. I did my residency in my specialty in family medicine, and I've just enjoyed it so much. And I've taught a lot as well as practiced.
Yeah.
That's what I did before I ran for council.
And what was it? Was there something that happened? It sounds like, you kind of had politics a little bit in your DNA, but was there something that made you go, okay, it's time. I need to get back into the family business and run for council? Was there something that drove you to do it?
Yes, actually. I moved here to San Diego in the early 2000s, and then I was active in the Democratic Party here. I'd always been interested in politics and history. I started as a history major and then later switched to biology and medicine. But I became active in the Democratic Party here the minute I arrived. And Obama was running for president in 2008. Which was a few years after I came. I was the regional coordinator for the Democratic Party for the center part of the city for that campaign. My cousin is one of Obama's campaign managers, David Axelrod. And so yes, it is the family business, and I had run away from it in my 20s and turned to biology and science, but I came back to it. And I think the thing that really led me to run for office, it was in 2017 when the hepatitis A outbreak occurred here in San Diego. And as a physician, I knew how it should have been handled. And we'd had 2 of those similar outbreaks in Pittsburgh when I was a doctor in Pittsburgh, and was handled very differently by our public health department in those days back in Pittsburgh. And I think we've rectified the situation now in California. However, back in Pittsburgh, the local public health for the county, the doctors, had the right to institute whatever was needed to resolve the situation, which back then they did immediately, and we would maybe have a couple dozen cases and the outbreak would be over. Mm-hmm. However, in San Diego, it didn't happen that way. We had hundreds of people who were infected by the hepatitis. And then finally we had, the inoculations, the public health service, but it wasn't until 6 months after the outbreak that came into play. That would not have happened in Pittsburgh. So it was unfortunate. Now the state has changed its laws. So now our county public health director, Dr. Wooten, can act in our best interest immediately whenever things happen. So I'm so grateful that the state passed that law. And I want to thank Todd Gloria. He's the one who introduced it in the state legislature and shepherded through so it got passed. So that's a wonderful progress for California and for San Diego County. So that was one thing that really moved me to public service. I could see how very important it might be to have a physician or a scientist on the city council. And the other things were, after Trump was elected, seeing how he operated, seeing what happened at Charlottesville, Virginia, after I personally had marched with Martin Luther King in my youth. And then I see Charlottesville with these Nazis marching with torches. And it just, I cried. It really made me ill. And I thought, oh my gosh, 50 years later, and we have to fight the same battles. And here we are, fighting the same battles. And this time, please God, let's get this over with. Let's realize that we're all equal. We're all the same. We all need to get along and respect each other. And so, here I am back in the thick of it again. And I'm glad to be here.
And what were when you took office, once you settled in as council member for District 2, what were the priorities that started to drive you? What did you really want to accomplish?
Well, homelessness. This is another thing that really tore at my heart because I'm a physician, and homelessness is not healthy. So I do not, and I'm so old that I remember when we didn't have homelessness. Why didn't we have homelessness? Because we had a social safety net, that when people had trouble, they could go to their city, their county, their state government, the national government, and there were programs that would help them. Now, since that time, many of those programs have been disbanded and are gone. And also our population has tripled since the time when I grew up. So we have many more people to worry about, and we don't have the safety net we used to have after FDR was president. So now here we are, and we're recreating it and doing it even better than ever before. And San Diego is really a leader in this. So homelessness was one of my main interests. I studied it in depth. Being a trained physician, I've learned to study the data and go by the science. And so I came up with a 5-item plan during my campaign of how to resolve homelessness. And then once I got on city council, I found that our housing commission here in the city had hired a consultant who used to be in the Obama administration, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, who's an expert in this subject. And she came to San Diego as a consultant and worked on a plan for us, the Community Action Plan for Homelessness. And we passed it as a council in the fall of 2019. And we have a 3-year plan and a 10-year plan, and it's based on the same 5 premises that I'd come up with. So I was so excited to see that. It's perfect. And it's working very well. And when COVID started, the city council had actually done a lot of good work on homelessness prior to COVID. One of the things we did was to use Golden Hall as a shelter. And it's a wonderful shelter because it's a solid building. It's not just a tent.
Right.
So it was even better than the wonderful shelters that we did have from Alpha Project, Father Joe, and many other providers. And so that was a good lesson. So it was supposed to be temporary at Golden Hall. And after 1 year, the city administration came to us and they said, well, we had to move the people here because Father Joe's building an apartment building for people in need of homes on that same land where we used to have that tent where these people used to be. And so now we're building another tent and we're going to get ready to move these people back. Well, the 5 women on the council said, oh no, we want them to stay at Golden Hall. And they said, what are we going to do about this thing we're building? We have contracts, we're doing it. We said, good, keep it up. We need more shelter. Keep it up. We still have thousands of people on the street and they need shelter and they need to have help so they can get into permanent housing, wraparound services, back on their feet and become contributing members of society once again. And so that's what we did. And I'm so proud of City Council for doing that. And then COVID came, and I remember the first week of March, the people from the convention center came to my office. We periodically meet with them to get an update and see how we're doing and what we can do to help them out. And they were saying, oh my gosh, we've had 5 conventions canceled already for March. And I said, don't worry, maybe we can use the convention center for the homeless. And they got this look on their face like, oh. And sure enough, by April 1st, the city had closed the shelters because frankly, the bunks were like 3 feet apart. That was too dangerous in COVID. So we wanted to protect the homeless from getting COVID. And so they decided to unite all the providers into the convention center. They had room for up to 1,500 homeless at the same time. And they kept the families and the children went to hotel rooms that the regional task force, the county and the city, we all worked together and we all rented these places. And the single individuals, they went to the convention center. And it started April 1st. And do you know, last week we passed at City Council that we're purchasing the Housing Commission, which is the City Council is one of the boards of the Housing Commission. We passed unanimously to the purchase of 2 residence inn type places that will house 400 more homeless people in their own apartments. And they'll have their own little kitchens, their own bathrooms, their own place to live, their own key to their own door, and they can get back on their feet. And in those buildings, we will provide the wraparound services that we've been providing in other buildings that the Housing Commission has done, and other providers who help those who are in need have helped over the years. So the Housing Commission was tasked with this by the city about 6 years ago. They have housed over 6,000 people since that time in 6 years. And now, since April 1st, in terms of the homeless center, with this new 400 people, it will make it 1,000 people that just since April 1st, we have housed permanently with wraparound services, so they'll be well, healthy, and back on their feet. So it's really quite an accomplishment. And this is the silver lining in the COVID cloud, because who knows if we would have gotten all this together in one spot had we not had COVID this rapidly. I think eventually we would have, because this is the answer.
Yeah, it's housing first, and this is how it's supposed to work. You get somebody in a stable place to live, and then they are more equipped, right, to tackle the issues that they face that may have contributed to them being homeless in the first place.
Right. Well, they've already been working on those issues, because at the convention center we have the entire wraparound services, all the social workers, the housing navigators. We have help for those whose health is impaired by addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, both. We have those who are disabled physically that we can help. So we're doing everything that we need to do to help these folks have a productive and safe life.
And are there other accomplishments, maybe just besides homelessness? And again, you haven't been on council very long, and you know, one of the 2 years that you've been on council, we've been dealing with this pandemic. So you know, that's been a big focus. But are there other other accomplishments that you've been able to do personally or from the council as a whole?
Yeah, well, there's two other large areas that I've taken a big interest in. One is the environment. And I am chair of the environmental committee on council. The very first month I was on council, the environment committee passed the CCA, which is the community choice aggregation. And that has now become the San Diego Community Power. And so what that will be is that we will purchase the community power, which consists of 5 cities now, not just us and 4 other cities. We will go in together to purchase power for gas and electric. And this should hopefully, once we get on our feet, we hope to lower the rates for our citizens, but also to provide clean energy, as in our climate action plan. By 2035, we want to be 100% clean energy here in San Diego for our heating and for our electric uses. And so, you know, this is really quite exciting. We're moving in that direction. We're doing fairly well. COVID has kind of put a dent in it, but that is still our goal by 2035. And I think we're going to make it. Where there's a will, there's a way. And we want to have all of our energy needs provided with 100% renewable green energy. And so that's, you know, that's quite exciting. That was the first thing we did. And of course, we've done other things about the environment. And the city all along in its sustainability department for the last several years has worked very hard on this. Parks and Rec, getting rid of pesticides in the parks, to getting rid of non-native plants and making sure native species can thrive. And other things we've done, we had the mayor do the Mayor's Monarch Butterfly Pledge, which is to help the city and the citizens have those kinds of plants in our gardens, like milkweed, that the butterflies and love to lay their eggs on. Because if we don't have monarch butterflies, you know, they do a lot of pollination, and they account for a huge percentage of our food stock is from bees and butterflies and other insects that pollinate our plants. So that's very, very important things. We want to have clean water. We have to worry tremendously about climate action. We passed a resolution on council proclaiming a climate emergency. This is a climate emergency. We're going to have hearings at the Environment Committee in regard to sea level rise. These things are going to be very impactful on San Diego. And we have to take the bull by the horns, plan ahead, have vision, and have thoughtfulness about all these issues. And so, you know, that's been a big thing. And the other big thing is short-term rentals. Short-term vacation rentals are a huge thing in District 2 because we have all the beaches except La Jolla. And of course, it's very important in La Jolla, and it's actually very important across the city. There are a lot of short-term rentals in San Diego. In our city code, we have no regulations on short-term rentals. We have no definition of short-term rentals. And on our city code, if there's no definition of it in terms of real estate, it doesn't exist. But let's face reality, it exists. We have short-term rentals, and we have lots of them. They have grown exponentially in our city. And so, you know, we don't know for sure how many because we have no governmental oversight. Very little. A few of them have gotten licenses, a few of them pay their TOT tax, but it's very few compared to the majority. So we have anywhere between 16 and 20,000 short-term rentals. 80 to 90% in San Diego are whole home rentals. And what that means is nobody lives there permanently, only short-termers. And so what that means is we have 16 to 20,000 units that are not on the market for San Diego's people who live and work here and need to rent a place or need to buy a house or buy a condo. And we need to take a look at this problem and fix it. And so we've been doing this since the very first day we got into office, in depth. And we came up with a plan that we talked to all different kind of stakeholders and got them all together. And two of them, two big ones on the opposite ends of the spectrum, one who absolutely hated short-term rentals, didn't want any, and one who was a platform for short-term rentals, Expedia, which has VRBO and HomeAway, and is a huge travel company in many other ways. It's the biggest one in the world. They got together in our office and said, you know what? Tell us everything about what you've learned and help us, because if we could find common ground, maybe we can resolve our issues. And they did that. They came out with a memorandum of understanding of what they would like to see. And we were able to get a cap on whole home rentals so that we will have many, many less in our city than we have now. Hopefully around 70% less than what we have now. And the other thing is, the regulation and the enforcement. So we're working on this now, went before the Planning Commission last week. They gave us several suggestions, but they all agreed we need to regulate this industry, and we need to contain it so it doesn't take over San Diego completely, because San Diego is the second most favorite tourist destination in America. And we have to make sure that we can still live and work here, those of us who are San Diegans.
So you obviously picked the really easy issues to tackle. The city's been wrestling with this issue for a number of years. What makes you think you can get it done?
Oh, I think it's time. Here in District 2, we have a few people who are completely against any short-term rentals. They want them totally banned. Well, unfortunately, the courts won't let us do that, and the Coastal Commission will not let us do that. So all we can do is contain them, cap them, regulate them, make sure that they are a part of the community and not a hazard to neighborhoods. And, there's a lot of good people who rent through the platforms and do a good job of it. And then there's a few bad actors. Well, in our regulations, we'll be able to get the bad actors out of there, and we'll be able to have the good providers still be able to stay in business. Those who share their home, there's no limit for them. As many people as want to share a room, share their home, they live in it permanently and they want to share, that's fine. We have no limit on that. They will be licensed. They will pay their TOT tax like everybody else, like the hotel industry has to. But we want to make a level playing field. We want equitable rules. We want everyone to follow the rules, and we want everyone to pay their tax and pay their license fees. And that's how we'll be able to enforce, because the license fees will pay for the enforcement. But I really think we will get this done. And that will provide more housing for San Diegans. And the other thing that will provide more housing for San Diegans is the other difficult thing I tackled, which is Measure E. And Measure E is coming up on the ballot this time. And thank heaven my colleague Chris Kate from District 6, and it's a neighboring district to mine, and we have been working together on this issue. And I like to roll with coalitions. I like to have cooperation, collaboration. We love to work together. That's how I roll. That's how I get things done. And frankly, that's how America has always been in the past. From the ground level on up to the national level, this is how our country has worked so well for so many hundreds of years. And if we could just get back to that, we're going to be just fine. So that's what we do on council. We work together. And Chris Kate and I brought forward Measure E, and the whole city council, well, most of them, voted to put it on the ballot by a huge majority. And so now it's Measure E on our city ballot. So when we vote this time, let's vote for Measure E. What does it do? It takes the 30-foot height limit away from the Midway district. This is about 886 acres of privately owned land we're talking about. It's the area of the city near the sports arena. It's not big. It's probably the smallest planning area in the city. But the planning group there came to us and asked us to do this. The neighbors who live there and the businesses, they came to us and said, you know what? Our sports arena area has been blighted for 50 years at least. Could you please do something to help us so we can make our neighborhood beautiful? So I like to think of the Midway area as a diamond in the rough. It's not on the bay. It's not on the ocean. It's not on the harbor. It's not on water. It's not on the beach. And the only reason it was included in the 30-foot height limit is because it's west of Interstate 5. So for those few blocks, that little bit of acreage, we need to get rid of that height limit.
You're one of 4 returning members, members of council that will be still around in 2021 and beyond. And you'll have 5 new colleagues. Do you have any advice, having been on council for a couple of years now? What sort of advice do you have for them coming in?
I have a lot of advice. They have to learn the ropes, and I want them to be able to learn the ropes early. So hopefully I'm going to make sure that they learn all about council and how it works and how it runs from the very beginning. From the moment they're elected, I want them to be educated so they'll know how to do it. I know when I came on, I was the only new person. The other newly electeds had worked in the council offices,
right?
And they knew the score. I did not have training. So I'm very lucky that I came from a background where I had some political training. So I kind of knew what to do. But, you know, as I say, building coalitions, working with colleagues, collaborating, using diplomacy. And, I love all my colleagues on council. We all get along well. And I hope that I'm sure it'll stay that way with whoever the 5 new ones turn out to be. And as you've noticed, probably, I mean, you've been with the council now almost a year, I think. And I think you've noticed that we almost always pass things unanimously. So all of us care about our city. We want our city and our districts to succeed. And I care about every district in the city, not just mine. I want to make sure that those districts that have been left out get what they need so they can feel completely equivalent. We need to have equality over everything.
Yeah, one last question for you. And is there somebody who is an unsung hero at City Hall? Somebody who doesn't get nearly enough credit for what they do, or it doesn't even have to be at City Hall. It could be out in the community. Is there somebody? I want to give you the chance to uplift somebody who maybe flies under the radar, but does really important things.
I can give you 2 specific names for sure from City Hall. First, I want to give kudos to Lori Witzel. She is the City Council Administrator. She does a fantastic job of taking care of the City Council people, the staffs, all the needs, everything about us. God bless her. And I don't think the citizens are aware that there's this one woman who really holds the ship together. And then on top of that, we have our wonderful city clerk, Liz Mayland, who a lot of people know about if they watch the city council meetings on Channel 24 or Channel 99. But Liz Mayland is definitely an unsung hero. She will now become a sung hero. She's a wonderful city clerk. You know, the city clerk's office is responsible for almost everything. And I met her when I ran for office because she's responsible also for the city elections. And she helps the candidates. She tries to train us how we're supposed to behave. She tells us all the rules, how to follow them. And she's just a lovely, lovely person. And she also keeps the council on task. So God bless her. So Liz Mayland and Lori Witzel, unsung heroes that everybody should sing about. And then let me just say kudos to all our city workers. You know, the city council, we wanted to make sure that our city workers didn't get laid off. We wanted to make sure that we kept them in jobs. And, you know, as it turned out, many of them volunteered to help at the convention center with the homeless. And they had to take training and learn how to do it, and they did. And they've just done a remarkable job. And so I want to thank them. And the other departments that had to stay full speed ahead, you know, construction, roads, water, all the emergency services, the police, the fire, the lifeguards. I mean, the garbage people, I mean, God bless them. They have all done a marvelous job. And I just want to give them kudos. They are the people that holds the city together and keeps us going.
All right. Well, you have spent a lot of time with me here today, and I do appreciate it, Councilmember Campbell. Thank you so much for this great conversation. I've been speaking with City Council member Jennifer Campbell, and I'll be back soon with the next segment of this conversation series. Until then, please stay safe and stay sane, and goodbye for now.
Goodbye. Thank you.